Yeah, sounds good, Clive. Thank you. It's a privilege to get to present to everybody in this global format. So that's very cool, and thank you for the opportunity, everyone. So our talk today here is going to be around a case study around a new cross-disciplinary model-based collaboration workflow. We call it the integrated estimating workflow. It is a model-based collaboration framework. Generally speaking, it's a great framework for the design discipline to collaborate with the pre-construction discipline. It is geared specifically towards model-based estimating. Just to do a quick introduction of myself, Brent Pilgrim. I'm with the Beck Group, headquartered out of Dallas, Texas. I live and work in Colorado in the United States. And I have a long history with model-based estimating. So I share this not as a boast, but just to hopefully earn some of your credibility in a very short amount of time, since we only have 20 minutes together. So I did the Malcolm Gladwell thing and calculated that I definitely have over 10,000 hours of model-based estimating experience. So according to Malcolm, that makes me an expert. But it's been a fun career so far, and I've really enjoyed it, and I really want to see us as an industry succeed with this in the near future. So I'm investing everything I've got into this. To get the presentation started, I want to bring to your attention, everyone, this wonderful article that was written in the Harvard Design Magazine. The QR code will take you to that if you want to click on that really quickly. It's a great article, very honest discussion from four experts in the industry. You may recognize some names. It includes Greg Garmisa from Studio Gang, Phil Bernstein, formerly of Autodesk, now with Yale School of Architecture, John Cerrone with Shop Architects, and Alexis McGuffin with Suffolk Construction. They have a very honest dialogue around this idea, around the failed idea of collaboration, and rightly point out that just using BIM isn't going to solve all of our problems. So hopefully that's a theme that you take out from my presentation. As we zero in on the pre-construction field specifically, there have been a lot of great technology and softwares that have been developed over the last 10 to 15 years. And you see probably just a handful of the names that are actually out there. There's probably 10 times this out there in the industry. The thing I want to point out about this is that not as great as these tools and technology are, not a single one of them has solved our problem around model-based estimating and making that effective. To be sure, there are companies out there, I call them pockets of innovation. There are companies out there that are doing really well with model-based estimating. They're developing their own strategies to deal with the challenges that exist, and they're doing it really well. But when I talk about the industry succeeding with model-based estimating, I want this to be something that's scalable and easily adoptable, and that everyone can succeed. You don't have to invest years in developing a specific methodology for this. So part of I love the work that the Limson team is doing, Sebastian and Aline. Their research in this space, it's actually, it was a fortuitous meeting them last year through Clive, and we got to share and collaborate a little bit on the research we were both doing. And it was interesting because coming at it from totally different angles, we arrived at the same conclusion. And on the screen are some of the adoption barriers that our research has uncovered around why is model-based estimating not by and large succeeding in the industry right now. And it comes down to themes you're very familiar with, things like the model completeness or model quality, inconsistencies, data. There's very common themes here, and they've been documented in research, so we can trust that those are the actual barriers to entry. Funny enough, it's not about the technology. It really does come down to the workflows that the teams are using. So let me introduce to you the integrated estimating workflow. What is this thing that I'm espousing? A technical definition maybe is a model-based collaboration framework built around 5 characteristics that distinguish it from any other practice that the industry is using today. These 5 characteristics are designed to specifically combat the adoption challenges that we're seeing in the industry prior to today. And it sets forth a clear expectation around teams who are going to use a model to collaborate. I also want to stress that this is a software agnostic workflow. So you don't have to be using a particular vendor's platform. If you can apply these 5 characteristics to any technology platform, then you ought to be able to be successful. In the time we have today, I don't have time to get into the details of this workflow. I would encourage you to click on this QR code, which takes you to a research paper that was published last year and covers the 5 characteristics in much greater detail. And it's imperative to understand what the 5 characteristics are in order to apply them to a workflow. But today is not about that. Today is about me sharing with you a case study where we did deploy this workflow with a brand new design and construction partnership outside of my firm. So it's not just me touting a workflow that we're finding success with. We purposely did the case study to help illustrate that this is definitely an adoptable and scalable workflow, and theoretically anyone can do it. So the 5 characteristics are very important. They need to be used in aggregate to make it work and to get like the full value out of the process. Again, I don't have time to get into those today, but you can read those. They're out there available on the internet. I'd love to get into the case study now. So the case study itself, our goal was to demonstrate the effectiveness of this new workflow, the integrated estimating workflow, and show that it does provide a very reasonable, a very simple to use a workflow for design and pre-construction professionals to collaborate together. So we wanted to demonstrate that. We wanted to show that it's something that doesn't require years of training and that we could pretty much do a just-in-time rollout of this particular workflow. So our process in creating this case study, which we started last January and finished in about November timeframe. So it was almost a 12-month exercise. Our goal was to go find 2 industry participants who were willing to play along that were not BEC. So again, I didn't want to just share with you that this is something BEC is doing. I wanted to share that this is something that industry can do. So we wanted to go find industry participants that were not BEC primarily people. And then we went through a training process with them. And then we went through a couple of mock project exercises to take them through the full process. One of those was Sutherland Page, who became our case study design team participant. And the other was Sunt Construction, who became our pre-construction expert on the case study team. I served as kind of a facilitator and a trainer of the workflow. And then we had several of what we called observers who were just watching the case study from afar, so to speak, and helping to give some feedback on the process. And we did collaborate with Colorado State University, who has an exceptional construction management program and does a lot of research. And so we partnered with them on this case study. All right, let me get into the case study because this gets exciting. The case study was focused on around a 50,000 square foot office building in kind of suburban US, outside of a major city. We had a program developed, and the goal was to give the design team member the opportunity to develop his own concept design for this particular project, develop a model around that using this workflow, give it to the pre-construction team member who was Jonathan, and have Jonathan perform a model-based estimating process on that model. So there was some freedom in the design process to give Nick, our design team member, space to just kind of run and not be constrained by any particular case study requirements, and then give Jonathan the tools for the workflow and let him exercise those and see what came about. So our process was to have one initial kickoff meeting, which we introduced the team to each other. Prior to that kickoff meeting, I had provided the research paper that was linked to the QR code earlier as a pre-read, so they could come into the kickoff meeting with kind of a foundational understanding of what was going on. Then we conducted a discipline-specific, I would call it a just-in-time training module. So just a 1-hour exercise, me focused, working with Nick as the design team member, showing him what would be required out of the model, and then a 1-hour session with Jonathan, our pre-construction team member, again to show him what was required out of the process. You may have remembered the graphic has the 5 characteristics broken down into a model authoring stage as well as a pre-construction stage. So there's 2 for the design side and 3 for the pre-construction side. Out of that process was a design concept that Nick developed and a resulting building information model that was built according to the workflow. So our findings were exciting, and they're fun for me to share because fortunately the case study worked out really well. Our findings were that from a design perspective, the model itself, the quality of the model was improved above and beyond what we would call a baseline level of quality. And I've got some information to help share and substantiate that. We saw streamlined data integration. So the parameters that we needed for cost estimating were included in the model with no problems. The simple fact that the 3 of us were collaborating around this model enhanced the collaboration process itself. We got to talk about a little bit about the design, what the design intent for the project was. Jonathan, as the pre-construction professional, got to hear that from the design team member, and that was exciting. Overall, we saw significant reduction in labor. Not just this case study, but every other project that I have deployed this workflow on, I've seen between 25 and 50% reduction in labor. The training itself was very friendly. It was an easy training application to deploy, and we proved that it was scalable across other teams. And then finally, if you are using other applications, as long as the applications support the 5 characteristics, which by and large many do, this is a software agnostic process. And so it's not constrained to firms who are only using one type of estimating platform. Those are kind of the general takeaways from the case study. Let me share with you some of the perspectives from the observers. They noted in aggregate that there was significant improvement in the collaboration capabilities of our team. So having this model, having this process to use as a collaboration tool enhanced the collaboration exercise, which led to a significant improvement in communication of the design intent for the project. We weren't beholden to 2D documents. We had the ability to collaborate around the model, and that helped communicate the design intent. Significant improvement of the quality of the building information model. So what the model comes into the estimating platform looking like, feeling like, is it organized, is it clean? To refer to some of the other presentations, is there a bunch of noise in it? All that gets taken care of by this workflow. And a moderate improvement to the quality of the cost estimate. They also noted that it was a scalable workflow. This is probably where I get the most excited, though, because this is Nick's feedback. This is his perspective as the design team member. So yes, he noted a lot of perspectives, not a significant challenge to implement. He was Revit savvy, so he was capable and competent with the software application that he uses in a daily workflow. He did note that there was a significant improvement in the quality of the BIM, which is really interesting to hear coming from the design team member. He recognized that the product that he was producing was much more organized than what I would call the out-of-the-box type of product. And then he felt like there was moderately significant improvement in collaboration with the pre-construction team. But the part I am most excited about for our industry, because I can go to the design teams and now say, look, we have design teams that are willing and able to adopt this workflow, and they didn't feel like it overly constrained them, or I wouldn't even use the word overly, did not constrain them in the design process. In fact, Nick says in his feedback, it actually gave me confidence because I knew we were using a realistic and technical workflow with technically competent tools and users. I actually had more freedom to explore the design space. And so I explored some concepts that I probably wouldn't have otherwise if I was dealing with more traditional delivery methods, such as just 2D documentation. So I thought that was great. That's a great piece of feedback that was unsolicited and came from our design team member. From Jonathan's perspective, yes, he noted significant improvement in the ability to understand and comprehend the design intent, which I think is so important for our industry. We talk about communication and understanding design intent a lot. A significant decrease in the amount of time to perform the quantity takeoff activities. One thing to share is that the takeoff is essentially performed in the model authoring process. It's just part of, it's a outcome of a great modeling process. He noted that this was scalable, very highly scalable in terms of other teams adopting, and many other categories that he noted significant improvement in. So by and large, the case study was a success. And so we have a technical paper coming out this next week, actually, that will be presented with the Associated Schools of Construction that has documented this case study and shares a lot of these results with the industry. So in conclusion, I want to share a few things. What does this workflow achieve? And I'm going to just share anecdotally what it does, as I have worked with this now for about 5 years. And then again, what does the research actually show? So what's the quantitative value? Just anecdotally speaking, I love this image. I mean, who doesn't remember the time in grade school where they were learning vocabulary and they would literally draw a line from the image to the word, and that was a way of learning the vocabulary. When done correctly, the integrated estimating workflow makes cost estimating feel like this. You're literally drawing a line from your cost item in your estimate to the model object in the model. And if everything is done accordingly and appropriately and labeled right, it's pretty much connect the dots type of activity. But also that organized model, first of all, it's like a clean house. It just feels better to work in. All the noise and distractions are set aside. So there's an efficiency that comes with the process, having a clean platform to work in. It's visually intelligent. Again, the communication of design intent is enhanced tremendously because I can now see the design in 3 dimensions, which we as an industry and professionals all know is a much better tool to deliver design information in. And then finally, that the quality that's expressed in these models increases the cost estimating side of the equation. That's probably common sense for most folks. So I share that as anecdotal feedback that I've experienced over the last 5 years. Our case study, this particular case study, plus several others, are providing more quantitative feedback. And so again, this is documented in the research that we'll be publishing next week, and I'll make sure that makes it out onto my LinkedIn platform so people can see that as a follow-up. It has not been published just yet. We're about 7 days shy of that going out to the public. And finally, I want to finish on this. We just used a simple financial analysis to measure the success or not of this right now. That's prior to current times. That's about all we've really had as a method for measuring this. Again, I want to highlight the research that Limson and Aline are doing, because they are putting quantitative measures around this, which is really exciting. We're starting to do that as well. And the takeaway from this case study, as well as others, is to ask our design community to adopt this particular workflow is imparting about 1% additional labor onto their workflow. When we designed the 5 characteristics, one thing we were very, very cognizant about was not overburdening the design community with a list of things that they had to do in order to make this work. So this is a very light lift for the design community, and on average is equaling about 1% of additional labor. The reason for that is because we're not actually asking for that much additional model authoring work. We're not asking for hardly any additional content in terms of objects. We're really asking for a nice, clean organization structure with the data, and it's very simple to use. Finally, I would say that although the feeling is that there's definitely a tangible value here, just using cost to convey value is not successful in my mind. And so we need a new metric. We need a better metric for analysis. And something I've been toying with here in the last 3 or 4 months is a new metric called data per hour, which really accounts for all the other value that comes from implementing a workflow such as this in our day-to-day practice. And so this accounts for, well, what are the other multiple value streams that come out of a model if it's been organized and created according to this workflow? It's not just the design documentation. We've now created a whole cost estimating value stream. And I would argue, although I haven't had a chance to do this yet, I would argue that same model could then be used in the value stream of 4D animated scheduling. And so it's just kind of a domino effect in terms of you set this model up right, you set it up well, it can be consumed by multiple downstream other users. And so that creates exponential value. Replacement of legacy workflows is one of the values that's difficult to measure. If I'm no longer doing 2D quantity takeoff, or at least significant amounts of it, that's a replacement of a legacy workflow. The efficiencies gained, just in individual activities and in aggregate is huge. And then the future value streams that are potentially unlocked. So in some preliminary work that I'm doing with this new metric called data per hour, my preliminary findings are showing that for an additional investment of about 1 to 3% in the labor side of the equation, we're getting 5x and up between 5 and 10x in terms of workflow efficiency gains. These are real numbers. They are kind of squishy and they're difficult to convey, but these are real numbers that are coming from this case study and several others that we're applying this to. So I'm really excited. I want our whole industry to benefit from this because this is a real efficiency gain for our industry. It's also a gain in terms of the ability for us to work together and collaborate across the disciplinary silos that Jason was even mentioning just a second ago, as well as Maria. So in these last 3 presentations, you are seeing a theme around that. So to close, we're going to continue doing research. We've got a research grant now that we're operating under for 2025 with a more rigorous case study. So the first case study was more of a mock style project. We want to do this same process on a real project. I want to refine this data per dollar metric or data per hour metric because I think there is something that we could benefit from as an industry. And I just hope to get out in front of more teams. I want to share this with the world and see everyone else benefit from that. So my call to action today is go check out the article because I wasn't able to get into the 5 characteristics specifically. Read about what those actually entail. Realize that there's not a lot that we're asking for in that workflow, and the benefits there are tremendous. And so what could you do as part of your day-to-day workflow to start adopting those 5 characteristics? So Clive, I'll end right there with some contact information for me. Again, that QR code on the right takes you to the research paper that was published last year. And then I will make sure and share through my LinkedIn page the article that's going to be published next week.